So, let me maybe not read those things out, but use this cycle to show you what's involved. So, at first, think of one child. After forms of production have changed, the making of, for example, in Queens Road East, you have a whole street of furniture shop. Why? Because before, those furniture were made also at the back, in the factory, at the back of the retail shop. And the workers lived upstairs. But this kind of work has moved into China. We don't make furniture here in Hong Kong anymore. So, with all these manufacturing and jobs gone, so a lot of the owners of these places have sold out and might have gone. And those people who stayed will see their property going into a kind of initial depreciation. Right? Poor people living there, you cut up your apartment into a lot of small units, and more people using it, more wear and tear. Your building, your property become obsolete in style. It needs major repairs, but you don't want to invest money in that because your tenants are poor. If you invest in repairing and doing a lot of things, you don't earn back your investment. And some of these landlords and homeowners actually sell out and move somewhere else to seek new homes somewhere else. And then there is also the neighborhood tendency for people not being able to own their property, but these are people who can only afford to rent. It's the urban poor who might have a little bit of saving that are not qualified to go into public housing, or might be waiting for so long to get into public housing, or there are new immigrants coming in because of the cheap rent, and these people are not qualified for public housing, so they're stuck in a district like Sunshine Coast, like Wan Chai. Right? So these buildings are under-maintained, right? And more of the investment of the capital flows out, and the better inhabitants also flow out. So what you see is a situation of a collection of the poor, of the urban poor, right? And the richer people, the middle class, move out of this section of the city. Right? So you see a very clear economic class, social segregation in areas like Yamade or Manbatnao, right? Where you have been near West Kowloon and Sham Shui Po and Old Wan Chai. And also this investment by landlords and financial institutions. Why? Why financial institutions? Banks would consider these areas as not as risky investment for lending. Right? So if you buy a new building, you might be able to mortgage 95% of the building. But for older buildings like this, 40 years old, 50 years old building, you might need to pay 40%, 50%, even 70% down payment in order to buy. So unless people have money to buy it, and those people who have money won't buy it. Okay? So banks are more reluctant to lend to people buying this kind of old buildings. So even financial institutions are disinvesting in the area. So in terms of how banks and financial institution looks at things, they sometimes, what we call redlining is, although it cannot be official, it's now against the law, but redlining is they draw lines on the map, circling areas that are bad investment areas. And banks tend not to lend money for buying properties inside the red line. So my point? But for very, very good investment areas, they have this golden lining. Right? Within the golden lining circle, you can almost have near 100% mortgage. So this is and this kind of financial institution policy also it increased the abandonment of the investment in this district. So it gets even more run down. And this finishes the cycle, right? So the more run down it is, the lower the rent. The poorer the people living in the district, the lower rent you can charge, and therefore it's a very, very very cheap place to buy and to rent. Right? So if I buy up the entire building and rebuild it and sell it as a middle-class condominium, I earn a lot of money. That's what Sanktufong is about. Right next to Blue House, you remember? So, and I invite the middle class to come back into the city, selling it as part of near historical sites, right? You can tell people it's near the Bắc Đại Miếu, right? It's near some of these historical sites. It's going to be near this new cultural historical site called Blue House, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. You sell it as a historical cultural district, and you tell people in Sanktufong that you're actually very near Wan Chai. Wan Chai is a culture center, right? You have the art center there. You have, you also have the convention center. You have the Academy of Performing Arts, so on. It's all the ways they sell Sanktufong, right? Although you can't walk all the way from Sanktufong to these places, but they do put those things on the brochure. And if you buy the top floors of Sanktufong, you can actually see the Academy of Performing Arts, and you can see the new convention center. So this is the way that people capital is attracted to do urban renewal, urban redevelopment in these areas near the city center where there's a wide rent gap. So this cycle can go on. Now there's also some culture-based explanations of gentrification. The economic restructuring of the mid-70s produced an inflated number of high-paying service jobs, while, like in the finance industries, in the service industries, tourism, hotel, while simultaneously undermining the already waning manufacturing base in many cities. And this creates a new middle class who occupy the high-paying service jobs. And this new middle class moved to the city to pursue city lifestyle. There is a new demand for aesthetic charm and occupational proximity to the inner city neighborhoods. So this new class of middle class begin to look for things that differentiate them from the homogeneous shopping mall, real estate style of the suburban areas. Right? Everywhere is a mini Taipei. So boring in the suburbs. And they're looking for something to differentiate themselves from the previous generation of middle-class people who live in this boring middle-class housing estates. So the importance of the past, like heritage or urban authenticity, like the Graham Street Market, now become more culturally important. And these pro-urban people also come out of a post-war counterculture movement background. Everybody defines themselves as unique, as rebelling from the previous generation, as being individualist, and so forth. There is also a greater acceptance of diversity and difference in the taste of this generation. So you see this kind of lifestyle, freewheeling, bog-wheeling kind of lifestyle in Greenwich Village, which is the rundown area in New York that has been redeveloped due to the wide rent gap. Right? And also Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco, you see Jefferson Airplane, so on. All these cultural elements, artists going into cheap areas, giving this kind of cultural capital to this rundown area and increasing its attractiveness to the middle class. And so culture of consumption available only near a city center is also part of the attraction. And this is all bound up with the rise of this new middle class, the professionals, the yuppies, the young urban professionals, or the creative class, according to Florida. And they created a new consumption aesthetics. It's still consumption, but a consumption that talks more about things like style, cultural capital. And Vancouver, Neil is pretty much